Guys, thank you for joining us today. Really nice to see so many people taking the time to join us, and hopefully we're going to have a good session discussing the art of digital signatures and how DocuWare can really support that mobile workforce within your offices for both yourselves and, of course, any customers as well, and partners that you guys work with there as well. For anyone who doesn't know, my name's Andy. I am the Regional Sales Director for DocuWare in the north of the UK. So some of you hopefully will already know me. For other people who don't know me, lovely to see you for the first time, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to speak a bit later. During our webinar today, please do feel free to add any questions into the questions area there. Apologies, I am here on my own today, so although I've got one colleague helping me answer some of the more marketing related questions, any of the questions aimed at myself, I will look at the end because I can only see one screen here today. So please do feel free to drop those questions in as they come into your mind there, and then at the end I'll do my best to answer them. We will also be displaying my contact details at the end as well. So again, if anyone wants to reach out to me afterwards, pose any questions, please feel free to do so. I always love to speak to people, so be happy to deal with anything like that later on as well. So what we're going to cover off today, some of you may be aware that DocuWare have been working with digital signatures now for quite some time. And we've been looking at the changes in the world and how the world has evolved, not only due to COVID, of course, but of course that's probably accelerated some of that change. And we've been looking at how that's changed the world of work and how businesses have been able to make the most of that to get the best out of their organizations. One of the things that I'm going to be addressing is some of the survey results that have been present over a multitude of different platforms over the last 12 to 18 months. This will give us a real kind of view as to what companies out there are thinking, what it is they're doing with those digital signatures, and how they actually see how they affect their businesses, or even if they do see that as an effect. Of course, that's an option for some of those people out there as well. So we'll have a look at some of those results, some of those survey results, and we'll start to have a look at some of those. Again, if anyone's got any opinions on those, or if anything comes up and you'd like to kind of put something out there, please feel free to drop it in those question boxes, or of course over to me on an email. I'm always interested to hear what people have to say, so it'd be really good to see and hear from you guys as well. We're also going to have a look at a demo of our digital signature. I have set our demo up with our validated ID integration today. However, of course, as many of you will already be aware, DocuWare do have partnerships with both DocuSign and validated ID. So just to give you that flexibility of having multiple different platforms that your guys can work with there. So of course, both will work in a similar way and for a similar reason. But I'm going to be demonstrating the connection with validated ID today. We've also got an offer, which you'll hear me talk about a little bit later as well, where actually for every new DocuWare system, we are offering 500 new free signatures for you to build in for your customers as well. So obviously a really great opportunity for you to offer the chance for people to dip their toe in the water without actually having to make that financial commitment or kind of firm decision until after they've had a chance to try before you buy, if you will. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to come back to some of those questions, and I'm going to try and give us a little bit more than 5 minutes to do that, because I'm hoping there will be some questions coming through. So without further ado, let's have a look at some of those surveys, and let's discuss how DocuWare can really support your organizations coming through to not just now, but the future. Well, as many of you may or may not be aware, excuse me, one of the real benefits of DocuWare is that it absolutely works where you want it to work. Let me say that again. It works where you want it to work. So gone are the days where business is done Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, between four walls. Of course, we know the idea of mobile workforce has never been more prominent than what it is right now. So I think that's really going to change the way our future businesses work and how our future organizations grow and develop. And of course, DocuWare can be a real powerful part of that. So we can see on some of our illustrations here, literally it doesn't matter whether we're working on laptops in the offices or at home, or actually just grabbing our coffee, walking down the street and preparing ourselves for our meeting or our day. We literally can support you on any platform, any time of night or day. Provided you've got an internet connection and a web browser, we are literally good to go. So we touched on that a little bit there. So any device at any time. Well, of course, this is never again been more prominent than it is right now. I think most of us now have anything up to an average of about 5 devices that we're using all the time. So that can be things like desktop computers, laptops, iPads, mobile phones. Maybe you've got multiple mobile phones. But again, it really is about being flexible and how really our cloud-based architecture can give you that web browser functionality so that you can get use of the situation no matter where you are, any time of day or night. As we go through today's webinar, there'll be a few things that I'm going to ask you guys to think about. And these are things that really are about just understanding, and maybe things that some of you maybe have thought of quite regularly and maybe before. Other people, maybe you haven't thought of these sorts of things. So these are going to be simple ones like we've got on our screens right here. So are you currently using electronic signatures, and how do they affect your business? What do you use them for maybe? What's the current processes or the demands that actually maybe you don't use them for right now, but you see as a value moving forward? Have there been any recent occurrences where you've been unable to get documents signed? That's something that I've heard from some of our partners historically, that actually having people and nailing them down to a time when they can be in the office is not always the easiest task. So actually the opportunity to do something different is really beneficial to them. Excuse me, where do you archive your documents? So once they're completed, those valuable contracts that we know work in all of our businesses, where are they and what do we do with them? How do we know when they're due to be reviewed? How do we know when we should be signing new ones? Maybe something that we can think about there. How many signed documents do you get per month? How many times do you get asked to sign a document, or even your organization gets to sign a document? Who within your business actually goes ahead and signs those documents? And of course, have we got the ability for your business to use digital signatures? Will it be a hindrance to your business, or actually is that something that you see as a massive opportunity? So these are just things that I'd really like people to just have a bit of think about as we go through. And again, as we mentioned at the start, it'd be really nice to hear some feedback from you guys, and feel free to drop some messages over there and let us know what you're thinking about those. So of course, 2021 has been a different year for a variety of different reasons. Of course, we're now starting to see, I think that light at the end of the tunnel. We're all starting to get back to normal. We're all starting to feel the freedoms that maybe were once taken for granted and have recently been taken away. And of course, the outcome of that is hybrid working, and digital workforce has really surged in its popularity. So this poses a bit of a question for me, and one that I discussed with some of our marketing guys over the last few weeks, and that is actually, when was the last time that we really used our pen in the same way as we did before? Is it still as relevant as it always was? Or actually, have we got used to using technology in a way that maybe we didn't think was possible, or maybe just didn't even think about previously? So I'm really keen to hear from you about this. And again, you'll see my contact details at the end. I'm also going to be putting up a form that you guys can complete to get some of our time. But please, yeah, do reach out. I'd be really interested to hear some of the feedback from you guys on these sorts of things. So some of our processes and some of our surveys that went out through both ourselves and some of our partners over the last kind of 12 to 18 months have really started to paint some of those pictures. And as we can see here, more than half of businesses right here in the UK use digital signatures for at least some of their processes. Now, we're conscious that as we were talking to people and as we talk to people in our daily lives, there's a very big mixture between people who use digital signatures a lot, or actually people who are still stepping into that whole world. And you can see on the right hand side of my screen here, 1% of those people actually even said they're not even really sure what that means. And I get some of you may look at that and think, yeah, okay, that's just a bit of a silly answer. But I think what actually was meant there is not that they don't know what they are. I think it's we can be comfortable that they know what they are. I think it's the idea that actually they're not really sure, that they're not really sure of the confidentiality. They're not really sure of how secure they are, whether they're legal. And these are questions that I think lots and lots of people have got posing in their mind, even now. So I think it's really a great opportunity to talk to people. We can see that actually as we go through our chart here, that actually 32% already use digital signatures for some processes. So I think that's a really good reflection of the fact that people have started to buy into these services. They've started to buy into this new way of working, but actually there's still an awful long way to go and a really big marketplace for all of us to look at supporting people moving forward. So what are the benefits? So the benefits of digital signature, of course, are far greater than I'm going to be able to cover in today's session. However, we've tried to pick out some of the main ones. So these will include around 50% of business users say the biggest benefits are increased efficiency and the speed of processing. So the quickness of time between making a decision and being able to put that decision into practice can be massively reduced, and one that's really beneficial to all organizations. Of course, compliance will remain on everybody's thought path though, and this is one that, again, I'm sure for lots of you, you will be hearing the same things as me, that actually compliance becomes people's biggest concern. I'm getting someone to sign this document digitally. I'm not necessarily seeing them sign it. Is this legal? Is this something that we can work with and actually have in our businesses day to day? Well, the quick answer is yes, absolutely. And actually, when we start to think about the capturing of those signatures, actually we're capturing more information digitally than we were ever able to capture when we were just handing over a piece of paper. Never before were we actually in a position where we could say, well, actually, no, this signature took place on this date at this time in this area by this person, was cross-referenced across multiple platforms through things like two-factor authentication and so on and so forth. Of course, we've got the biometric area of that, so we can start to track the biometric readings of that person's signature and so on and so forth. So actually, although compliance is a perfectly reasonable thing for people to be thinking about and considering, I think we've got some really great answers and really great ways of putting their mind at rest. So the second thing was, how often do UK users work with international documents? Now, of course, international documents have been something that have been around for many, many years. I personally have dealt with some international documents very recently, where we were having to post them and so on and so forth. Now, obviously that was an opportunity for us to discuss with that organization about how digital signatures could really support them in their organizations moving forward. And we can see that actually from our graph on the right hand side there, that we go from companies who use international documents every single day. 7% actually said they use them many times every single day, even down to people who say 24% of those organizations deal with them a few times a year. So it's fair to say that most people will be interacting with international documents at some point throughout their annual work. So again, massive opportunities, not only for digital signature, but for DocuWare to really support those people moving forward. Compliance, of course, I've been quite heavy on compliance today, and I've really kind of hammered home those, and that's because this is the area that I get questioned about probably more than any others. So this is the one where actually we are seeing the impact. Now, I don't want to scare anyone with the idea of GDPR and POPI and so on and so forth. But of course, these are real life considerations for organizations, and they're really important that we actually adhere to them. not only for the complications that that gives us as organizations, but also just for the moral aspect of, are we actually treating people correctly? Are we dealing with things in the right way? And again, DocuWare can give you that real tight compliance regulations, those real kind of support and ensuring your business is doing things in the right way, both now and also for the future. Most adapters obviously adapt digital signatures for many reasons. But the one thing that's key is obviously once we have a solution, can we get the best out of it? Now, as you can see, less than 30% of businesses who have already adopted some type of digital signature are already recognizing that actually, although they've adapted it and they've started using it, they're not using it to its full potential. So again, we have options to be able to support these people, even if they already have a solution. So what might that look like? Well, of course, you can see from our graph here, we go from the very, very small numbers, 2% of people who are unhappy and they are going back to using pen and paper. Well, of course, as we know, if someone's unhappy, we've got an opportunity here to understand why they're unhappy. What's gone wrong? Because this is not a solution that's a bad idea in any way, shape, or form. So how do we reflect that? How do we sort that problem and show them a solution that can be very, very financially viable as well as rewarding for the organization? And that's one of the areas that I hear quite a lot. Historically, digital signatures were very, very expensive. And I think now, if we look at how the market's shifted, how it's changed, we can all be assured that actually this doesn't have to cost the earth. It doesn't have to be hugely expensive to be able to bring these extra solutions into our organizations. So what does that mean? Well, we can see, well, a third of people don't use document management systems at all. Really? A third of people still don't use any type of document management system whatsoever. Again, a real great marketplace for us to be able to go out and sell into and support with a real great solution. 28% don't even know if they use a DMS. They don't even know. Now, again, maybe that's not so surprising to some people because the way our systems work and the flexibility that our systems are given means that people in their day-to-day lives can work in the way that they find flexible and they find easy. But I think we've got a great education piece there to be able to really push forward and make sure people understand the value of why document management systems are important. And then finally, only 17% use a document management system with a built-in e-signature feature. So why is that? Well, maybe it comes back to the idea of people not really getting the best out of the solutions that they have. Maybe. Maybe it's just that the integration has never been done. I guess these are questions that we can ask and our clients are happy to answer. And again, if anyone has any feelings or feedback on that, I'd be really keen to hear that as well. So some common issues when building businesses which don't use digital signatures. Well, of course, we can see again from our graph that our standout one there is that 37%, and that's split between two different areas. So we've got two at 37%. The first one is the storing of those physical documents, getting those pieces of paper signed and holding on to them in those physical formats. Now, of course, rules and regulations do change in how we can deal with those physical documents throughout the world. And of course, I'm conscious that we've got people on our call today from lots of different environments and lots of different countries. So please feel free to, please do check your local advice on any digitization of documents. But your local RSD will be very, very happy to help you and any questions. And of course, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to discuss that with you in a little more detail. The second one there is the total time it takes to collect signatures. Well, we mentioned this earlier, didn't we? And this is certainly something that I've seen from some of our partners where historically that has been a complaint, if you like, that actually they really want to be able to speed that process up from decision to signature to obviously rolling out solutions and being able to invoice those solutions. So the idea of bringing in digital signatures has been really powerful for lots of our partners. and has obviously supported them in streamlining those. And again, of course, if any of you would like to discuss that in more detail, I'd be really interested to talk through, and also to introduce you maybe to some people who have already done that, so you can get some feedback from them on where things went well, what they found as a challenge, and so on and so forth. You can also see some of the other areas there, the cost of using paper, the tracking of documents statuses, and also following up with people, all being things that are key to people's thoughts and decision-making processes. Now, hopefully some of those resonate with some of the people on our call today. However, again, it'd be great to hear from some of you guys there as well. So let's have a look at some of the myths. And apologies if I'm maybe skipping through some of those slides there, but I think some of these things are really, really important. So I'd like to give some time to some of those. And I think the myths are obviously one that that is very kind of meaningful. So 39% of people think that it might encourage signatures and fraud when signing documents. Well, I guess we've already touched on some of that really, and it's a perfectly reasonable idea for people to be thinking that way. Perfectly reasonable. However, I think we've got a really good message and a really good argument, because we are capturing so much data when we use digital signatures, far more data than we could ever have caught just by handing over a piece of paper and someone putting a pen on it. So I think we've got a really good message to be able to discuss there. Electronic signatures and technology includes several built-in authorization features. So again, very similar. I was just covering some of that there as well. 44% of people think it might increase cybersecurity issues. Okay. Well, digital data and electronic signatures are actually more secure. And again, for all the reasons that I mentioned previously, we simply wouldn't be able to capture the amount of information by using a pen and paper that we can capture using digital formats and digital ways of working. 22% believe it may not be compliant. And again, I touched on this earlier, perfectly reasonable way of thinking, perfectly reasonable. But of course, we've got some really good messages for that. So the vast majority of purposes for digital signatures are legally binding. And of course, we can show evidence and supporting documentation to answer those concerns for people there. And again, when we see 22% is quite a big number of people that are still considering that. 10% believe there's too high a learning curve. Too high a learning curve. Well, yeah, okay, we understand there's a setup process that has to go into place, and we understand that people do maybe need to think about things in a slightly different way. But in reality, in live environments, these things are generally reasonably simple, and actually in some cases, and you'll see in the workflow and the demonstration I'm going to show shortly, that actually it can be easier than people, well, firstly think, but secondly would ever have expected. So okay, let's have a look at that. Let's have a little look at how that works within a real environment. So for most of you, I'm sure you'll be aware of our DocuWare solution, and we can see our DocuWare system here today. All I've set up within our system is a very simple file cabinet for our digital signatures here, and that's where we find ourselves right now. We can also see a contract that I'm going to go ahead and get signed today. So let's just connect everything up there, make sure we're connected, and we'll go ahead and run our service here. So welcome to Peter's Engineering, someone that you will all be very familiar with, no doubt. We can see that today I have a contract, a quotation that I'm going to get signed off by our clients. Now we can see that the elements that we've put in here are normal elements that you would normally have within your documentation. So simple dates, my name, my email address, contact number, so on and so forth have been added to the document, very similar to what we would do in every kind of proposal document that we could use there. So to kick our demonstration off, all I'm going to do is go ahead and print our document. Really simply, you'll see I'm using our DocuWare printer to be able to print back. And of course, I'm not going to cover off the DocuWare printer today, but should anyone want any further information on things like other services within DocuWare, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Happy to discuss those, or equally with your local RSD, and they'll be happy to cover those off for you. So I'm going to go ahead and print that document in the same way as I would normally print it. So that's going to do a few things. And the first thing is that the document itself will start to be analyzed. We'll start to pull out some of that information straight off that document that we might use for our index data, or equally the processing of that information as it goes through our systems. So we can see the information I've targeted here on the top left-hand corner. And also I'm going to be targeting page 6 on our document here, and that's where I'm going to be putting our customer signature. So I've got a trigger statement at the bottom of our page here for customer signature and a space for that signature to be populated. Now, if I jump back to DocuWare, we'll be able to see that automatically that document will have come back into our system, and there it is. We can see that that categorization and those index data have been captured into our system. I have a status of the fact that it is a new document that's come back into the system to be worked with, and we can see that everything is there for me. Now, automatically a workflow will have been kicked off in the background, and as if by magic, there is an email that's just arrived for me there. So let's have a look at that. Well, I've been given an email that's going to replicate the idea of what your client would actually receive. So they've received an email. We can tailor make some of these areas here. So we can change colors, we can change logos, some of the wording in here. You can see that I've highlighted this has come from Peter's Engineering. So of course we can start to kind of brand up some of these emails to show they are from you. And your client can really simply just access the document by clicking on the link there. They don't need to install anything on their devices. So long as they have an internet connection and a web browser, they're good to go ahead with that. No need to download or install any apps or softwares to complete the process. We can see the document itself, and I can go ahead and review that in the normal way that I would do there. And I'm going to go ahead and say I want to sign that particular document, which we can see analyzes a code, and that sends it out to the signature that we captured straight off the document. Now for speed, today I've given myself a set code, but of course under normal circumstances, that code would be sent out to our mobile phone, and it would be different every single time we use it for obvious confidentiality and dual factor authentication rules really. This presents me with a nice clear box, and I can go ahead and make my signature. Now that signature can be with a pen on a tablet, it could be with your finger on a mobile phone, or equally just using the mouse, as similar to what I'm going to do today. Once I'm happy, I can go ahead and finish that signature itself there. You'll see we get a nice clear status bar and a nice clear message. So regardless of how techie or non-techie our client is, they don't need to worry. They're going to get nice clear messages all the way through to let them know what's happened there. So I can say okay to that document. Brilliant. Let's have a look what happened in the background. Well, if I go back to DocuWare, we'll see that the document has been updated. So I can see our document here. I can also see that if I scroll across, my status has been updated to signed. And if I go over to page 6 of our document, we can see that that has actually been signed. Maybe a little inconvenient timing there, but I've also received a second email. And that email represents what your client would then get. So that would be showing them that, okay, thank you for your signature. It has been signed and sent back in. And here's a copy of that document for you for your records as well, so that they have a copy that they can obviously keep for themselves in whatever way they see fit. But straight away within DocuWare, it's already been saved for us. So really slick, really easy, no major extra jobs for me to do as an individual to be able to process that signature. And of course, I wasn't timing that, but I would say our time from beginning to end there was probably less than 5 minutes, is probably fair to say. So yeah, I think we've got a really good solution there. Now, of course, remember I used the validated ID platform today. DocuWare does also support connections with your DocuSign platform. So if that is your sort of system of preference, then of course things can be made just as easy and just as simple using that platform as well. So at this point, I'm going to draw our demo to a close, and let's have a look at some of those use cases. So here's some of the areas that we see coming out quite regularly. Sales, marketing, probably being the top two. Finance, absolutely up there with things like invoices and expenses and things to be signed off. Don't forget as well, outside of that legal signature platform, DocuWare does also have an authorization process, so we can use our stamps for more internal authorization processes. And of course, that means that we can combine that legal and non-legal signature and approval process to ensure that you're only paying for signatures that are actually of that level and do require that legal requirement. So again, makes us very different to lots and lots of other solutions on the market today. But some good areas that you can start to discuss those with your clients and also business partners and also other departments within your organizations. These slides are going to be available for you later as well. So again, you can recap on some of those a little bit later. So I did promise there was a little freebie that we were going to be giving out today or announcing today. So we have partnered up with Validated ID, and what's been agreed between DocuWare and Validated ID is that for any customer that signs up before 2020, so any time between the end of between now and the end of 2021, will also receive a free 500 signature package already included within their DocuWare Cloud solution. So that's a Validated ID signature package, including 500 free signatures ready for them to go ahead and dip their toe in the water and try them out for themselves, already done there. You don't need to apply for that. It will automatically be added to any new cloud system that's ordered at the moment. And of course, if anyone has any questions or queries around those, please feel free to reach out. Be more than happy to have a conversation around that. And of course, an opportunity for your clients and your other business departments to really be able to test out the solution and how it might work for them moving forwards. I'm going to have a look at our questions and answers, but just while I do that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have, we also have a way of getting in touch. So I promised I'd give out my contact details, and I will very shortly, but we've also got a nice, easy way for you to get in touch with us. So I'll pop that QR code on the screen there. Feel free to go ahead and scan that. You can complete your details, and if you'd like to submit that, then I'll be very happy to come back to you myself over the next couple of days and answer any questions, or even just have a conversation around some of these things and how they might be able to support your businesses moving forward and your clients' businesses, of course.